Good evening, good morning, and good night. Welcome to Inappropriate Radio. It's your host, Shauna. Let's get into this. Okay, so I am going to give you guys a disclaimer. I am not a doctor. I am a lifelong scholar. The Most High has been nagging me so much that I couldn't even get it off of my brain. I can't rest. This topic is touchy, but it's definitely correlated to spiritual warfare, and we're going to start connecting the dots, okay? So, this topic is about HIV and how our gene sequence and its mutations and everything changing started with HIV. Now, I'm going to go into a lot of different things, but the main thing I want to cover is, this is just like surface level stuff, but I just want to go into immunity. A lot of people don't believe in it. They might say that it's hype, but there are some people who are immune. Now, we all know what HIV is, so I'm not going to give a definition for that. But there are some gene deletion mutations that have allowed people to be HIV resistant. Now, by definition, a gene deletion or mutation is when a sequence or a part of a chromosome is left out during replication. Now remember, we discussed earlier in the segments how people will start getting removed from the bloodline, how the vibration of the bloodline can be raised. And this is a scientific depiction of that, right? Because what else can connect us to our ancestors in the spirit realm? Our genes, right? So, and this is crazy. I feel like I need to go back to school. There are literally so many things that like I never even heard of. It's crazy. First of all, did you guys know that there was more than one HIV? Yes, I said that. More than one HIV. We have two types. Just like there's herpes 1 and 2 simplex, there's an actual HIV 1 and 2. And within these variations, there are subtypes that further break down the virus even more. HIV 1 is categorized as the more... I'm sorry, because I'm looking at notes. This is a 95%. The HIV 1 is 95%, and it has subtypes M, N, O, and P. And then you have HIV 2, which is 55% different from HIV 1. It's resistant to some antiretroviral drugs. It's mainly found in West Africa, and it's harder to transfer between people, and it progresses slower. So I found that really interesting. I can't wait until we set up the visual, because this is crazy. I really want to interact with you guys a little more. Now, within this, now these two types of HIV are not to be confused with the 3 stages of HIV. We can look that up. You guys can go into that on your own time. Another thing that I found to be interesting is how people with sickle cell anemia have lower rates of HIV amongst that population, which is also crazy. That this is the sickle cell anemia trait isn't also a mutation. By the way, gene mutations are considered deletions or defects, right? These are considered a default in the gene. And I find it really interesting that mainly Black people have the sickle cell trait, which this defect makes it less likely to contract HIV. Of course, the conversation of blood types came up, and then the biological side versus the behavioral, the preventative drugs. Of course, all of those things have come into the conversation. But like I said, this is just surface level stuff that a lot of us don't even know. Because like I said, I found this really interesting that there were 2 different types. And within those types, there are subtypes. And within those subtypes are different categories. So this is really crazy. But we're just honing in on the spiritual, the warfare, and just basically going back to how our genes have been manipulated, and it's really kicked off with HIV. The gene manipulation, not even the manipulation, but more so just the changes, the many changes that we as a people, not just Black people, but we as a human race have really begun to start changing on a genetic level as far as modern times are concerned. What science can really track and do. Now, what I also found to be even more interesting is that there are different factors that can make you resistant or immune to HIV. Now we have the CCR5, the Delta 32 gene, which blocks the entry of the virus. This is a gene where the strain, the distribution of this particular Delta 32 varies by the geographic location, where 5 to 15% of people have this double copy mutation, and it's higher in Northern Europe, and it tends to lessen the further down south you go, where African and East Asians don't have the mutation at all, making them more prone to infecting, in the Northern European people actually having it. And what was even further shocking is that within that 5 to 15%, only 1% of the world has this Delta 32. Now that's just one type, where that particular gene mutation blocks the entry of the virus, whereas the TNOP3 shows resistance, where this can be contracted. Well, the resistance is showing up where the virus is being transported. So that's like if you have a sexual partner who's positive, or where a mom is pregnant and the baby doesn't get it. Now this TNOP3 comes up where the blood has already been transported. This shows a resistance, where in the CTL is protective with consistent exposure, where this exposure is coming, this resistance, I'm so excited about this, where the resistance is showing up in the genital mucus, meaning the resistance becomes ineffective when you're not having sex with the person who's positive. So you have to constantly expose yourself with the CTLs now in order to maintain the resistance to the virus. Now, what's most interesting about this is because, number one, we've found out that the geographic location is the determining factor of one of the ways to be resistant, whereas the CTL was also something because they found this in Canada and in Nairobi, Kenya, mainly, and those in the surrounding countries that border, they had this genital mucus that allowed them to fight off the virus as long as they were constantly being exposed to the virus. So this goes back to what we've been discussing all along. where your genes, right, and your genetic sequence, and how all of that warfare transcends down into the physical. Now, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a biologist, I'm not a scientist, but like I said, I am a scholar by birthright, and we're going to definitely dive into this. But another thing that I wanted to say is that the people who had this Delta 32, where they were more likely to have it in Northern Europe and West Asia, were found to be also resistant to smallpox, the bubonic plague, also known as the Black Death, HIV, and now possibly COVID. So this conversation had come back up when COVID had transpired and people were getting their genes tested to see if they were genetically resistant for whatever reason, and the Delta 32 gene came back into the conversation. So yeah, we have to remember that the gene mutation is an alteration, a deletion, or a loss of a piece or an entire chromosome. So the reason why that is important is because, remember, we talked about people being removed from the bloodline when they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing in this realm, when they're not stepping into their life purpose, or when they go against the grain. Now, this goes all the way back to us discussing the importance of not polluting your own genetic code, because when you're disobedient and when you go against the grain, you can actually delete your own self from the line. Which I find all of this really, really interesting, but you have to really, really just go and look into it and do your own research, because I don't want to say something that's not true, and I don't want to encourage anyone to come up with any bright ideas. But like I said, the Most High has been nagging me about, I'm like, Daddy, can I please wait until Friday? Because I wanted to have a better dialogue with this, because this is just scratching the surface and I want it to be a little more detail oriented. But honestly, he's like, no, Wednesday. Monday, he told me Wednesday, this was the topic. And then yesterday, he said it again. And then I was snipping through the channels, and I promise you, so many different messages and downloads that came through about HIV in particular. And I just started looking up Magic Johnson and why didn't his wife catch it, and all these theories about him actually not even being infected, him just being a poster child for the first antiviral medicine that was released into the market, and also obviously him having money, and being able to have access to different herbs was the conversation, and just better quality medication overall, and just this better lifestyle, right? So yeah, there's different types of HIV. There's different subtypes within those types, the 1 and 2. Geographic location can determine the type of resistance that you have. And yes, you can catch HIV 1 and 2. Yes, you can. Whew, this is crazy, y'all. We're going to go back into this. I'm actually going to make an HIV series. I was told to tell you guys that we're going to start breaking the podcast down into series. So we're going to do an HIV series. We're going to do an astrology series, and we're going to start going into matchmaking. So yes, this is fun. I'm getting excited. I'm really excited about it. And I'm looking forward to having a deeper dialogue and a more serious dialogue with everyone. So yeah, I hope you guys had a good day. I hope your morning was good. I hope you're going to eat something good. If you are fasting, I hope you broke your fast with something good. I hope all is well. I hope you are drinking your water, drinking your tea, eating your fruit, and minding your business. I hope all is well. I hope you are sleeping, and I hope you are laughing a lot. Yeah, that's it. I love you guys. Peace.